Good evening. We're with the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, and we'll be joined with you by one of our board members, Betsy. Betsy has a ton of wisdom in the dyslexia space. I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with her, go through where dyslexia has been with regard to our education system, and where we can go with it from understanding where we've been. So really excited to have Betsy join us. But as questions come up for you, please feel free to drop us a line. You can also email us at the branch at International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch. We'll be happy to answer those. And last week we had a great event with our students. Got a lot of positivity from that. And so we're going to be continuing to bring you different events, different information that you can find on our website to help educators, parents, current students. We're here to support. And Betsy's logging in. Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm
Good to see you.
good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sound good.
Um,
This will
I'm
work.
really excited. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight.
You're wel-
Go ahead.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I was kind of introducing you. You're a current board member. You have a ton of knowledge in the space of dyslexia. You also serve on our Equity and Education Committee. So I'm I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about your beginnings with dyslexia and your journey, and maybe we could just go from there.
Okay. Well, I have a couple questions for you too.
Oh,
If
of course.
time we have.
We have plenty of time.
Okay. Um, well, it's hard to say. I guess a lot of us got into the dyslexia world because that's who our family is, and we, at the point where we discovered it in our family, we needed a bunch of help with it because it wasn't something that we knew anything about, period. Um, you have a child who is bright and lively and doing great, and then he hits school and he like takes a nosedive, and you want to change that. It's just where it all comes from. So that's how I got interested when my little boy was, having these problems. And it was about, we've talked about this a little bit, Jared, but he's a contemporary of yours and someone that you actually went to school with. So,
Well, not only did I go to school with, I actually looked up to in my journey in school as someone, and I didn't know he was dyslexic or had any learning challenges whatsoever. Just somebody that,
and that's what I wanted to ask you about, because that really speaks to this whole series. You are not alone. There you were, and he was thinking they were all alone. You were all alone, each of you, and you were seeing, you weren't. Both occupying the same space and at some points having similar interests. And I'm just wondering, with programs like this one, do you think it's getting better or feeling less isolated and different and alone? Because that was certainly a problem in those days, don't you think?
I think it was totally a problem in those days for sure, because no one was talking about it. There was such a stigma around it that you didn't want to identify. So from that aspect, and seeing what our student panel does here at the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch, I do think it's getting better with the level of conversation around the topic and the people that are able to connect with one another. Systematically, I don't know that we are getting better. And by that, what I mean by that is what's still taking place in our education system is I think we're playing miles behind where we could be, given all the knowledge, all the research, all the information that's constantly available. It just seems like we don't want to take the steps forward from a systemic standpoint. But I believe that our youth is voicing out connection and raising the awareness, and the dyslexia you are not alone messaging is taking place. But
so in some respects it is, for some kids at least, getting better.
yeah.
Where we found help was through the IDA, International Dyslexia Association. So this was 30 years ago,
Wow.
right?
Yeah, it was totally 30 years ago.
Really a huge source of information in those days.
But I wanted to ask you this question. What are you seeing? Do you think it's getting better? I mean, from somebody that's seen where it was 30 years ago, and we joke that my parents put together a plan with rubber bands and duct tape and like didn't really know what they were doing, but trying, like working their tails off to get it done.
I think people say that.
Yeah. Well, and then I think we have a lot of communities that are still, our marginalized communities are still suffering from this.
Really don't know how to access that. Yes, you and I are on the equity committee because we both believe that we want to make this information more accessible and useful to a broader range of people who are affected. I have one interesting story that I would tell how we got connected with the IDA, which was really, as far as I could tell, really the only thing going in those days. Really, as I said in my intro, they really provided two things that were really helpful to me. One was a support group, and I was never a person who wore my emotions on my sleeve, and I didn't like to talk about how I felt about things. And I thought, a support group, I'm not going to go sit and talk to a bunch of people that I don't know about how I feel about stuff. But interesting, we found out about this support group that was sponsored by the IDA Oregon because my husband was on jury duty, and our son had just been diagnosed, and we were just like thinking about it. Was just like at the top of all of our brains, about processing what this was and what we're going to do about it and stuff. And my husband's sitting in this juror's room for 2 weeks. In those days, you got called up, and then you had to sit in the room for 2 weeks, and then see if you got called onto a jury. And he came home after a couple of days. He said, "I sat by the most interesting person," and her name is Dale Holloway. Well, Dale Holloway was a member of IDA. I don't know if you ever got to meet her, but we have an award for service in our branch named after her because she did so much work. And she ended up becoming my mentor, taught me everything I knew, sucked me into this. She said, we have this support group that your family might enjoy. And it was through Lewis and Clark College. And she had organized a group of different learning students there. And after she worked with them for a while. She was just an English teacher, and she had to figure it out herself. She just saw these interesting kids who were really smart, but they were making all these weird mistakes. She was a writing teacher. They were making all these weird mistakes. And then she started seeing patterns. She was really intuitive. And so she started this group with these kids and helped them understand their dyslexia. And out of that, they decided that if they had known about what their problem was for little kids, they wouldn't have suffered as much emotionally, that the anxiety and depression that they felt in their lives would very much alleviated. And to learn about what it really was, they always knew something was different about them. Um,
Sure.
small children, and embrace it as part of who you are and get the help you need, you would be so much ahead of the game. They just said there has to be a better way. So they started this support group for kids, and they were kids with learning disabilities like yourself, who were college age, and we would go on Saturdays, and they would do activities with the kids, and then Dale would help present information to the parents in a really safe place for discussion. And so that was a wonderful introduction to us, and that's where we all learned a great deal and met some lifelong friends, by the way. And so I'm just so pleased that you are really doing that for us now. It takes a really nice, great, committed leader to do it week after week after week. And how many, I looked at how many Instagram videos. I can't believe
Well, I think it takes a village, and we have such a
it.
powerful team of people around us, and the leadership. I think, I look at Danielle Thompson, I look at yourself, Jane Cooper, like the leadership that I've been able to have, as part of this journey has just been tremendous. It's so much knowledge. Like I learned something from every presentation, and I've sat on, I mean, how many times have we gone to different schools and
Have you had to listen to me talk?
no, it's the privilege of listening to you talk. But I come away with something new every time, which I think's amazing because it just shows like how much knowledge is in the space.
But you take that knowledge and you share it with the kids that you mentor and the adults that you mentor, and it's just a wonderful, very important function of our branch that I appreciate your stepping into and filling that void. It takes a good leader to do it. These groups come and go, but they're very strong when we have a good leader in them. So I really appreciate all that you're doing with the kids right now and their families, because it is a family issue, and we're kind of, as a family, all in it together, coping, but also gaining from the experience of being with a group of really quite wonderful people.
Um,
Thing that the IDA had that I was really interested in was the information, and because I couldn't just go on the Google, and I mean Google what didn't exist, and get pretty good information, but because I have a science background and worked at OHSU, I had access to a medical library, but I needed to know where to look. And the IDA pointed me in those directions. And I actually served on a research committee at the national level while I was president of the branch. So that's when I just started becoming a know-it-all in the field.
you truly are. I was going to ask, well, I have a couple questions for you, but what is it like to see our website and the information that's just like so present right now? Is that what is that like for you, has someone who had to go to the library and like really dig into it, but like to just be able to see it?
It's just wonderful and a relief, and I've been serving as the information referral specialist for a number of years now. And so that, I don't know if everybody knows what that is, but that's kind of the front desk. If we actually had an office and you wanted information, you could walk in and there would be somebody sitting there, and that's who you would talk to, or you would call them up or send them an email or a text and ask a question. And that's what I've been doing. I have found in the last few years, the number of questions has really leveled off, and it comes and goes throughout the year. People seeking information, but so during the summer it's low because people want to think about something else other than school. But in general, fewer questions, because I think and Tanya, who is our webmaster, has done a wonderful job of kind of surveying the questions that we get and putting that information up front so that a person doesn't have to stand between the questioner and the answers, and that the information can be just sorted out right from our website. And I truly think we have the best website of any branch on the and it just really frees up people to do other things, because there is so much really great information there, and I think you can always trust that it's good information. Some stuff you find on the internet is not, and that's what attracted me to the organization, because they're science-based, and the people that advise and write the fact sheets, for instance, and all the materials. They're very they're nationally known, and they're contributing their time in many cases gratis to provide this information that we can all find very easily now. It's great.
Something that I appreciate about you too, Betsy, that I think as someone who was new to the space in terms of advocacy and thought process, it's just been amazing to have someone like you that you can kind of check yourself against. That, hey, is this the right direction? Is this where we should be taking things? Am I seeing this correctly? Because of your wealth of knowledge, your wealth of information, it's been a tremendous asset, I think, for me personally, but I also know our board as well. And it's raising the question as you're talking, where would you like to see this go? Like, where would you like to see learning challenges and dyslexia and equity? Like, how do we piece this together in the bigger picture?
Well, I'd like to see the day when kids with learning disabilities are not considered special. We're just regular people on a kind of a sliding scale of, we have some things that we can do really well, and we have other things that we can't do so well. But for schools to recognize and to be able to treat everyone, not treat, but educate everyone in the classroom without special services, because they are applying really good instruction and individualizing it as much as possible. I'd like to see almost all kids served very well in the general classroom, and being able to be who they are and access information in the way that they access information. And sometimes it's not with written language so much, but we have other ways of doing that now, which is also a change and quite wonderful.
Could you maybe like talk a little bit about what those opportunities are like in the classroom? Because I think people hear it, and I don't know that, I mean, you can really like pinpoint some of the things that could be done in the classroom that would make it equitable for everybody.
Well, the accommodations that should be universally applied to all kids. You shouldn't have to prove that you have a difficulty in an area. For instance, to get, having a timed test just stresses everybody out, and it makes it harder for you to show what you know. If you're under some time pressure and your brain just doesn't work as fast as it gets there, but the pathway isn't straight, and so you have to give it time and take the pressure off of it so you can express yourself as best you can. just recognizing that there are those differences and that speed doesn't make it a better product. Doing it fast doesn't make it a better product. I guess because I'm slow too.
Well, I mean, but it makes sense, right? Like, and I relate everything to sports, but even
Oh, yeah.
I look at the marathon, right? If you
Yeah.
give people 8 hours to do the marathon and people can do it in 2, they're not going to spend extra time on the course if they don't need to. Eh, And in return, the people that need a little bit of extra time to get to the end result are still going to feel accomplished and be able to go on in their endeavors with a level of achievement. And I think the same thing applies to the classroom, right? Like it, I mean, it's not a sprint with like who can answer 10 questions really, really fast. It's can you get them, can you
Right.
get the concepts and can you get them right?
Yeah.
And if it takes you a little extra time to do that, I've never understood that pressure of the specific time.
Yeah. That's a big thing. You know, the other big thing that we've been working on for years is just to get schools to, especially schools of education, higher education, to recognize the science of teaching reading, and you know, and give the teachers that they're training those tools so that they can do a better job in the
Well,
classroom.
I
You know,
remember. Oh, go
just
ahead.
but
No, you're good. I didn't mean to
go,
interrupt you.
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I remember this conversation you and I had where I was like, if they applied science-based reading programs from K to third grade, and because we know that not only do dyslexics or people with learning challenges can read that way, but all students could learn to read that way through scientific base. But it eliminates 90, let's say 75% to 90% of the challenges that would extend past reading for students with dyslexia or other learning challenges. You solve a big chunk of it right from the beginning,
Yeah.
and it's such a small investment to the bigger causes when you don't do it that way.
And we know that so many kids are not reading efficiently who don't even have dyslexia, you know. We can improve reading for everyone. And for those that still struggle, even with good instruction, we have tools for them to use to communicate more quickly and as efficiently as they can, which you use every day,
Yeah.
right? And you
Yeah.
use in the workplace, you know. I guess my biggest bugaboo is spelling, you know, because my hardest problem. But we worked for years on the state exam of disqualifying people from various activities, high stakes activities, if they didn't pass the writing part of the state exam. And the Ask case back in the 80s said that if a student has an accommodation on their IEP, that their spelling can't be graded in class, or that they get to use a spell checker, they should get to use it on this test, because that's how they spell. And it just took us about 20 years to get that to happen. Now everybody can use it. And, you know, the people who write these tests couldn't get it through their head that, number one, the kids didn't know how to spell because they weren't being taught how to spell. It wasn't really that hard. And so there's a lot to writing that, and spelling isn't the biggest part of it, really. And maybe you should separate those two skills, you know, having the thoughts and getting them down on paper, and separating it from the conventions that are really hard for some people, but they may be great authors. And in real life, they have secretaries, they have computer aides, they speech to text to help them with the writing process, and they can get those brilliant thoughts down. But they can't pass a test to get on to the next step to be able to do that. So I think that's something else that's improved, but I can't believe how long these changes take.
Well, Yeah, and I think that's a really good point on the duration that it does to change or implement things into the system. But you also brought up the fact of being an author, which you are, and I was wondering if you could share a little bit about the book that
Oh,
that you that you wrote.
okay. Well, I can't take 100% credit for it. I have a co-author
Okay,
and
well,
published a book in 2006, actually. Um, and it was called The Reading Glitch, How the Culture Wars Have Hijacked Reading Instruction and What We Can Do About It. And the title's way too long, but we just decided to, shine a light on the problem of poorly taught reading instruction and how it affects kids with disabilities of dyslexia and other language disabilities. And we didn't, but Lee is actually a journalist, and she's written in the fields of education, and she was a neighbor of mine who had a kid in the same situation. And she has written in the areas of education. She worked for Northwest Regional Education Labs at the time. And the way she got started on it is she wrote a monthly publication. She got really interested in dyslexia because of her stepson. And so I had talked to her about it. And so she came to me and said, could she interview me? She liked the idea of telling people stories and how it personally, how systems and structures and institutional structures can affect an individual person's life. And so she actually interviewed me, just like you're doing, and came up with a wonderful publication. And I sent her in the direction of a few other people to interview, some kids from our support group, and some tutors that were working in the area, and some researchers that I knew through their work. And it was really successful. And so she came to me one day and said, Betsy, we should write a book. And anyway, so we did. And it took another 3 years. I think we had 30 or 40 stories, individual stories in the book. And they were of the whole community, really, kids, their parents, the researchers, the tutors, the classroom teachers, telling their experiences and how the system affected them. And then we sprinkle in some information about the history, philosophy, education, how we got to that place that dyslexics were so misunderstood and had to struggle to find help. And then what we could do about it, and that was to pay attention to the science of reading and, implement it in classrooms. So we said this, how many years ago, and we're still waiting for it to happen. And we weren't the first people to write a book similar. We took a little more personal tact. But it was a wonderful experience for me. I got to interview some of these people that are doing fabulous research, and then these great kids and their families, and teachers who are all. I just love my community, the people that work on this, and I got to know a lot of people through that process.
Well, yeah. Well, I just want to say your community loves you too. You're getting a ton of hearts, ton of shout outs.
What is this? Goes up.
It's when you're saying when you're dropping all your golden nuggets, people are giving you lots of praise.
Okay. Me on Instagram.
Where can people find your book today?
Well, it's Multnomah County Library has it.
That's awesome.
We gave Danielle and I gave a presentation for the children's librarians there a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, and And I met this woman named Ebony Bell, who's now serving on our equity committee, who kind of organized that. She's an amazing, I hope you get to interview her soon. And I told her about the book, and she said, where can I get it? And I said, well, you should have it in the library. And she checked and it was still there then. So, but it's a few years old, but they still had it. It's Roman Littlefield's a publisher. You can buy it on Amazon, wherever.
So audience members, if you're looking for a good book, Multnomah County Library, check out Amazon.
Yeah,
Give us the title one more time.
The Reading Glitch.
The Reading Glitch.
The whole rest of it. The Reading Glitch, and it's Sherman and Ramsey, the authors.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a little dated now. But the stories are still the same. The stories are really the same. The different people now, but the stories are the same. We've made a little progress. I really do think we've made some progress. Just a minute. I'm going to get some, it's getting dark in here.
Yeah.
Does that help? A little bit?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, way better.
There.
Betsy, I wanted to leave you with the last word.
Uh-oh.
What's your message to, whether it's educators or parents or teachers of the world, like, what's your message around education, or where you would like things to go, or what's your philosophy?
Well, just don't let your problems in school get you down. You struggle, and sometimes I think your future looks bleak. You think your kids aren't going to make it, and you look at the statistics. What percentage of people in prisons can't read? It's huge. I mean, illiteracy is a huge problem in this country, and it's the basis of a lot of economic problems, I think, because people who don't have good reading and writing skills don't get good jobs. They don't make much money. They, unfortunately, this anxiety and depression that comes along with it from the experience of school failure is just heartbreaking, and leads to substance abuse and prison for too many kids. And you and my son were both very fortunate to have families that could help them keep going and never give up. And that's always your message. Your message is my message. And if you do that, you can be a really successful human being, an adult, and both you and John are. And I'm so proud of you both for all the work you did. And you're kind of getting me emotional now, but it's hard work. But find your friends to support you, and let your family help you, and find the teachers that understand you, and you'll make it. You really will.
Betsy, thank you so much. Ton of great information tonight. We'll share this video out so people can reference it, your book, your experience as a parent, your experience as an educator is just, it's so valuable, and we so appreciate you. Totally agree. I feel so fortunate that I came from the family that I did, which is why this community is so important in giving back and finding ways that more and more of our students can find success wherever they come from. That can't be the reason why. And the more we have a universal education that connects with these students that you talked about tonight, the better off we're going to be as a whole society. So we'll continue to keep working and make strides. So thank you so much, Betsy.
Thank you, Jared.
Have a great night.
You too.